Hello, viewers. Welcome to Science TV, the voice show. I am your host, Videlis Njoki. Before we continue, always ensure that you watch us on all our platforms. We share aspiring stories where we discuss on different topics and different perspectives. You can find us on our YouTube channel and also all our social media platforms. The Voice Show is aired every Friday at 8 p.m. and there's always a repeat every Sunday at 8 p.m. Today, I have a very beautiful lady. Please introduce yourself and tell us what you do.
Thank you so much. So my name is Shayla Opio, and this is my sign name. I am an advocate officer at the Free a Girls World Network organization. I'm a content creator, and I'm also a young dancer.
Wow. She has already given us a sign name, but before we proceed, tell us, why do you sign, or why were you given that sign name? Please explain to us why you do use sign language.
Okay, that's a very, very good question. The reason why I use my hands or I sign, or this is my means of communication, it's because that's how I communicate, because I am deaf. And if you're hearing, for me, I can't really hear, but I can speak. I can have a voice, but I'm not so eloquent and fluent. And at the same time, I can lip read. And when I'm using the hearing language, it has a limit and it has some level of challenges. But sign language is the fluent language for me, and I prefer using sign language.
Our lady has told us that she's deaf. So can you tell us, were you born deaf, or one day you woke up and found yourself you are deaf?
Wow, that is quite a story. So let me start. Okay, so I was born hearing, and just a normal hearing child up to when I became 3 years. At age 3, when I became 3 years, that's when I became deaf. How did I become deaf? For me, I became sick like every other child. I just became sick, how everyone can become sick, and I was diagnosed with malaria. So at the time, it was bad. I was so much affected, and I had to be admitted to the hospital. And I think it's my bad luck. I was given a wrong injection when I was diagnosed at the hospital. At the time, my parents and my family were not there. But something that is always so concerning and make me feel a certain type of way is when my parents explained to me after I had grown, that at the time when they were giving me the injection, their goal was to actually kill me. So when they gave me the wrong injection, it actually didn't work and it did not kill me. But what happened is, when I found out about this, I was so much shaking. And they realized that the reaction was not normal. So they had to bring me to like a surgeon who's going to find out where the problem is. After good investigations, they realized that I was given a wrong injection. I wouldn't know why they would want that, but maybe that's something that happens in hospitals out here. Maybe it happens. So through that wrong injection that I got, I thank God that I'm okay, but
Wow,
I just
so
became
shocking.
deaf. I just became deaf, but I did not die.
When the parents take their children to the hospital, in case they get sick, you need to be very careful so that you may not be misdiagnosed. Mm-hmm. This is a very shocking story. You mentioned that the time you became deaf as a young girl at 3 years old. Can you please tell us As a deaf person, how did you grow up after you became deaf when you were 3 years old? Did you join a deaf school directly, or can you share more about that?
Nice. So, for me, okay, so I grew up in a community which is a hearing world, a community of hearing people. And I stayed in the community until I was like 6 years old. This time, I had never known about special need education or a school for the deaf or anything to do with the deaf school. So throughout my life, my parents also did not know this. So I had to go to a hearing school. But I was lucky to have an uncle who actually worked with the department for physical or special organs, where they will, if you have an ear problem, an eye problem, basically the department dealt with all that. And that's how, when he learned about my wrong injection that I got, he had to advise my parents who were ready to get me a hearing aid. And at the time, I was a bit lucky because I had a little bit of hearing, but it wasn't the best. So it was so concerning because my parents really were so supportive, and I was going to a deaf school a hearing school at the time. So I stayed there up to around age 6, age 7. When I was about 6 years or 7 years old, I remember I just didn't feel okay, because I remember before, you have to keep in mind that before, when I'm in a hearing school, as other people are learning, or in the hearing world, there's writing and the teacher is also speaking. But in the deaf world is a bit different, where is after you're taught, you get to write notes. So in primary school, that was a very big challenge for me, where I had to rely on mouthing, which wasn't the best. So I really felt like the doctor had said that this girl is clever, and they had advised my parents that if they get to move me to a deaf school, that is going to like reduce my ability or intellectual level. So I think that's how they think, that maybe the intellectual level of the deaf people is a bit lower. So my parents actually took the doctor's advice, and they didn't want to transfer me. But later I had to advocate for myself, because my parents listening to other people or other people's advice it was hurting me. They have to focus on me and the concerns that I bring forth. So I really felt like they had to trust me and take my action and do things which are actually making me happy. So at the time, my mom was able to look for a school for a deaf. She started looking for a deaf school that I can join. And it was not easy, because at this point they didn't know even where to start. But I was lucky to have a relative who actually lived in Kisumu, and that's how the relative connected my mom, and they were close friends, and they worked together, and that's how I was moved to a deaf primary school, and that's how I joined the deaf community. But I'll really say the first time I joined here at deaf school, I was a bit taken aback, because it was a different world. So you have to remember, I'm from a community where everyone is hearing. Sometime I remember I used to meet some few deaf people out here. And anytime I met two deaf people signing to each other, I used to laugh. And it was funny to me, because I thought these people had lost their minds. So when I'm moving to a deaf school, everyone is signing. I was so much taken aback. I see people who are signing all over. So I used to laugh so much. It was, I think, amusing for me. And so the deaf people did not block me, did not look me like a bad person. They actually accepted me, because they understood that I came from a hearing world, and that's how they gave me the sign name, because I used to laugh a lot anytime we had interactions.
Okay, that is a very interesting story to share. Being a deaf girl who has joined a deaf world, and I think it's almost like the way you have shared the history of deaf schools. It's very interesting, because you had mentioned, yes, there were challenges that you faced in the hearing world, and then you decided to join a deaf world. That is Kuja School for the Deaf. You also mentioned about you joining the deaf world, and you started laughing, you saw it was a joke and it was funny, and it's yourself who had advocated for yourself that you wanted to join a deaf school, and later you joined it, and then you started feeling that it was funny. So it is part of acceptance. I do understand that. But do you enjoy being in a deaf world, or would you want to go back to the hearing world?
I was really motivated and interested to stay in the deaf world because at this point I have no hearing. And you remember, for me, in the deaf world, I don't have any limitations because my hearing is not there. When I look back, I remember in the hearing world, it was a bit challenging compared to the deaf world where the challenges were a bit fewer. So I was so happy when I joined the deaf community. And this is because my way of communicating using sign language was comfortable. You see? And this was because everyone I used to communicate with or interact with, or anyone who joined this world, would understand how our way of communicating. But anytime I'm in the hearing world, I used to have challenges. You keep on asking, what are they saying? What are they saying? Sometimes there's miscommunication, and sometimes there's just a lot of barriers. So when I'm using my hands to communicate, it is very, very easy and it is seamless for me. And that is the advantage that I got in the deaf community. And that's how I learned my way of communicating, and I felt comfortable with that. Because I remember previously, when I was in the hearing world, I would experience challenges most of the time because I have become deaf and my voice wasn't the best. So anytime I used to speak, they would say my sound was breaking. So you can imagine a situation where you're in a society with your friends where anytime you try to speak, they laugh at you. That actually wasn't the best. So they kept on correcting you, telling you are wrong. So even in your mind, you'll have to drop whatever you're doing. Whatever you do, I had to rely on writing to like understand what they're saying. And if I need to respond, I need to write. And that was wasting a lot of time. So after much contemplation, I actually just let it go. And with a lot of patience, as I kept going, I stayed until I was like 12 years old. And that's when my mom felt like I have to do what's right for my girl. And as a family, we had to accept me. They slowly did. And they were really accommodative for me. They were not resentful at all, because they felt like being okay is okay. And later, through my family acceptance, I was able to also be comfortable with myself. And my mom would really, really teach me how to speak, and that really made me improve a lot. She used to sit me down, teach me words, and that continues up to now. If I have to learn, she corrects me so well. And that is very, very, very good. She'll tell me that this is wrong, you have to say this way, this is right. And as we have progressed, everything has been good. We have merged so well. My interactions have been so effective with the communities. But you have to remember, being in the deaf world, it's very comfortable for me, because I don't really experience communication barriers, and I know my rights where they have to respect my language as sign language. So that has really made it fluent for me. I'll say we have so many deaf people out there who are not really comfortable, but for me, I'm much, much okay.
I understand the viewers, you have gotten something from this. Once you become deaf, it's not the end of the world. You can continue learning every day. We have some who are hard of hearing. We have different hearing capacities. And once we become deaf, that's it. And we learn every day. We're going to take a short break. And then once we are back, we will continue with our conversation. Welcome back. Let's continue with our conversation. As I've told you, I have my friend and my sister. She has shared her story and her experience growing up. She has experienced the two worlds, that is the hearing world and the deaf world. And I remember before we went for the break, you said that you are a youth advocate at a Girls World network. Probably you're going to introduce yourself again, but anyway, please share a brief of what type of advocacy that you do at a Girls World network.
Okay, let me get to repeat it again. I am a youth advocate officer at Free a Girls World Network. Okay, Free a Girls World Network. And in this organization, it was actually founded to advocate for women with disabilities in general. It's not. It does not focus on the deaf community alone. So any person with disability, our goal is to make sure we advocate for your rights. We advocate for the rights of women. It's women in general. You see, it doesn't matter because at the end of the day, even if someone is a girl, they grow up to become a woman. So you're trying to be controversial, but it's fine. So I'm an advocate. My advocacy work focuses on the rights of persons with disability and the mental well-being to area 2. Because one thing for sure, why women with disabilities get to face a lot of mental challenges, but do they have even reasonable accommodation that can allow them deal with their mental issues, challenges, or do they even know their rights and how they can better have the reasonable accommodation? Because you have to look at it for us, we work with both women with disabilities and women without disabilities, and we merge them together when you're doing our trainings. Because one thing for sure, as I'd explained before, I'm a content creator. And the reason why I started a podcast recently was because we have to create and spread awareness about people with disability. Because you look at it in my podcast, I get to talk about persons with disability, the knowledge, and even accessibility and the challenges which you get to face. Sometimes you have to realize that challenges are similar, but they're also different when it comes to people without disability and people with disability. Hence, we get to reduce the stigma that we face.
You have talked about, you focus on 3 areas or 3 sectors. And I do understand, or from my own perspective, your idea when you talked about, you focus on mental health as your organization, you ensure people well-being is okay, and you have also been working on reasonable accommodation and for people to get good services. Right now, we know mental health has been a huge challenge and a very huge issue. True. And not only in Kenya, but also in the world. I can imagine if persons without disability are experiencing challenges, especially on the mental health, I can just imagine a woman with disability who is experiencing the same, and they're also not experiencing good services or good accessibility. As a youth advocate, can you tell us or share a situation where you have seen mental issues or mental health affecting persons with disability? And also the barriers that we have in accessing the health services on the area of mental health.
Wow, good question. I remember we started our work in the field by doing a research for different areas in the country. And we've worked with more than 10 counties. We have visited them. And we really realized that through our project, we were working on the mental health issues. And through advocacy, I remember we had created a partnership with KNCHR, who we were working together. The department or the organization fully focuses on the human rights mostly, but we had to change perspectives because we have people who don't even know how to advocate for themselves. So we had partnered with the Department of Persons with Disabilities, and I remember that's how we started to do community outreach, because we realized people were facing a lot of stigma because they were having mental issues. You remember, mental challenge and mental health issues, these are two different topics. People at first, I remember the first community outreach, they brought people who had mental, maybe illness, and that was different from mental health issues. And I remember we really went to different counties, but the counties that I'll say lead the most is the Western region, because the mental health issues are very high in that area, because they have cultures which they are holding on dearly, and these cultures they can't really want to break, and that was a big challenge. And then the second area, I'll say in Kajiado area, meeting the Maasai people who are really much holding on to their culture because of these because of their way of life and the way they hold on to their culture very strongly. You will meet some of them who are having mental issues, some are having mental challenges, and they know they can't speak out because they don't want to be kicked out from their communities, but they want to follow the rules, and they allow themselves to stay in the situation. And we really noticed that some of them were really suffering with very high mental health issues. And according to me, through my advocacy work, I've really realized that in our country here, we live in a country where the human life can now be just taken for granted, because you have people who don't have disability and they experience challenges to some extent. Their life is challenges, they are not aware. But when it comes to now working with women, with our people with disability, I feel like they've been left behind. So for me, even that was among the reason why I really had to join this project. And I was joining to make sure that our voices are heard. So for me, I try my best to make sure that there is inclusivity and there is reasonable accommodation where the mental health issues are looked out for. And say the biggest challenge that we have is awareness, lack of awareness. So in whatever we do in our advocacy journey, we were trying to speak and teach people and make sure they're knowledgeable. But people were so surprised about everything we were telling them. They've never heard about our topics or our lessons. That showed me that there is lack of awareness, which is a big challenge. And that's even was the motivation for me to start my podcast, because most people are now on social media, people are using technology, and through the podcast, so many people can get to learn through my content. I didn't start it because of the benefits or financial benefits. I started my podcast to make sure this message gets to like so many people. And I'll say that so many people. Another area where we were facing a lot of challenge is leadership, where there's a very, very big gap. There's a big problem in that area. But for me, I'll say we're trying our best to make sure that we give the best, and we're trying to make sure we try and raise the percentage to around even 30%, because I remember recently I went to Kisumu. We were doing a community outreach there, and I remember we went to a prison, and we were going to see a deaf person who was there. And this deaf person has stayed in prison for around 13 years now. So imagine when we get there, we met this person who can't even explain well why she was arrested, but she was kept there because she has a disability and she could not even create a defense for herself, and that's how she has stayed in prison all this along. So we really are looking for an advocate or a lawyer who's going to make sure they follow up the case clearly to make sure there is improvement or there is advocacy or her life becomes better. So through participation in this program, we're hoping that the case is going to get listened to again. And if there's any salvaging that can be done, we hope it's going to be done. Because sometimes you get to meet other persons with disabilities who are experiencing mental health challenges. We focus on a lot of topics to do with persons with disability, but mental health topic is something which you have forgotten. And sometimes there's a lot of miscommunication or misunderstanding from the society. Hence, the challenges keep growing bigger and bigger. But in the society, I really am feeling confident that if we create awareness, we make sure the message gets out there, everyone is informed, then we can possibly go on well and everything is going to be good. But if the awareness level remains this low, it's going to be a bit challenges, because most of the time we get to do a lot of workshops in the cities and we forget to go to the marginalized area where they are experiencing bigger challenges. So for me, I'll say awareness creation is very, very important, and that is why I really continue with my job, and that's why I even do content creation.
You have mentioned something that is very important. You know, now the world revolves around the digital world. As a content creator, you are now transitioning to the digital world. And you are spreading awareness through technology. You said that you have worked in different counties and you have supported persons with mental health, especially in the rural areas. And you have achieved something from that. So tell us, in the next 5 years, where do you see yourself in the area of advocacy or as a youth advocate? What is the vision that you have?
Wow. That is quite a difficult question. But allow me to answer it in the best possible way that I can.
Yeah, we never know about tomorrow, but you know,
that question is so touching.
God will give us the grace to live more.
Okay, so if in the next 5 years of my life, what do I want to see? In the next 5 years, I hope that this vision is becoming clearer, and I really hope that's going to be happening. And the work that I'm doing right now, it's not only for my benefit, but for the benefit of the community as well. And this is because through my advocacy and through me putting the effort is to make sure the community gets to benefit, and we make sure that no one is left behind, that we get to move together. If I move alone, that is not good. So for me, the future that I really want is, I believe that in future I'm going to be a big leader who is going to be leading with compassion. And that is very important, because definitely I don't want to be proud or to be a person who's selfish. I really hope to have a lot of compassion, because through that I'm going to lift up so many people. As maybe we're progressing in life, I can't want to progress alone and leave other people behind. That is always my biggest concern.
You're going to be a very good leader in future because of the interest that you have. And what is your final message you have to tell the viewers? I want you to look at that camera and give us your final words.
Okay, so thank you so much for allowing me to be here. And the message I like to give my viewers out there is, if you see younger people, or if you know this person has a disability, remember there is no limit. A person with disability can actually interact, can actually do everything just like other people. We need to change our perspective and make sure that we remember that we can do everything as every other person is doing. In whatever you're doing, whatever motivates you, remember, never limit yourself. Continue, keep going, and you're going to have the best for the future. But if you want that, you have to work for it, and the future is going to be bright. That's all I had to say.
Thank you so much. See you on the next show. Bye bye.